the speakers on the user group together in an office, and that hasn't happened today. So today we're coming at you from Lancaster, Crewe, Nottingham, and me, myself, sat in Wigan, which for anybody on the line who knows me, knows that's inevitably where I'll be sat, because that's where I was born and bred. So without further ado, we shall move through the slide deck. Okay, so we've got an agenda today, so I'm going to give you a bit of a tribal update, an overview. We're going to give you an overview of the 5.19 release, which was released almost just over a month ago now, so has been in the shops for some time. We'll give you an update from our support team, and then that will segue into an update on a project that we've got ongoing within Tribal now around knowledge management. We will give you some regional updates, mainly specific to Wales and to England this time round, and then we'll finish off by looking ahead and a little look at the roadmap. Yeah, so I've referenced the fact that we're coming at you from different locations, and here are the people who are coming at you from those locations. So we've got myself, Mike Fisher, and a lot of you will know me. I'm the product manager. I did only take that picture on Friday, so that is a picture of my lockdown beard, which is it's had a trim actually, so it's not as big as it should have been. I did put a shirt on as well to take that picture, which made me smile because I haven't had one on for 6 weeks. Also on the call, we've got Karen Elliott. A lot of you know Karen. She's been within the Maytas business a long time. Karen's had a role change. She'll be explaining more about that later on, but Karen is now our knowledge manager. We've got Ben Lowther joining us from our support team. Karen and Ben are both in Lancaster. That's where they live. And we've got Matt Butson, who's spoken on these events quite a lot, who is currently sat in Nottingham, so he's Tribal's data and funding advisor. Helen is one of our consultants. She'll be doing an e-track demo for you later on, and Helen is the person residing in Crewe. And Trevor, I absolutely forgot, and many apologies, that we had an extra location on. Trevor is our customer success manager and is currently sat in Lincoln. So if you've got any questions, okay, as we've done with these groups previously, and there's already a couple of people interacted with them, thanks Ben for the compliment on my beard, please do post them up in the GoToWebinar window. So if you have your webinar pane open, just a little bit that kind of floats on your screen, and there's a questions area there, you can actually technically raise your hand to ask a question. We're not going to do audio questions. We've got quite a lot of attendees in there. We've got over 100 people on the call now, so interacting like that isn't really possible, but please do type up your questions. We'll do our very best to answer them as we go, and I'll just drop into the questions now and again every time that we get some good questions, and I'll try and make sure that people are aware of the questions that have been asked and the answers to them. So it wouldn't be right for us to just not touch upon the current state of the world, and just reference the fact of Tribal's reactions and approach to the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis that we see ourselves living through at the moment. So bizarre time, as I'm sure you'll all agree. Tribal are publishing updates on our website, as you'd expect, so you can go there and you can just be updated on where we're at as a business. All our staff are now working from home across the country, across the world, in fact. We are we're a largely remote working business anyway, and the only people who it's really quite different for is our support teams, who usually are always in an office together, and our development teams, but they've all adapted now pretty well to working from home and supplying the same levels of service, and we're still trawling through developments for the August, just at the same rate that we'd expect to with all the guys in the office. So yeah, we're fully operational as a business. Obviously our support business is open, normal support hours, and similarly our services teams are still working on ongoing projects, although as you'd imagine some of those projects have been paused for now, but if you do need services from us, we are available to offer remote services. As I've said, service and consultancy teams continue to provide full service contactable through usual channels, and basically our Tribal Communities Forum, which we'll be talking about a little bit later on, has updates from all those teams on there as well. And then just a little thing for us to put out just from the wider Tribal, if you do, as one of our customers, require extended support, altered delivery timelines, assistance with business continuity planning, or any queries about support or billing, we are here to help. You've got various people you can contact, whether it be your account manager, whether it be the support desk. And I would say that if all else fails, if you just don't know who to get hold of, but you do need to talk to Sky, we'll just drop something through to support and we'll make sure it gets to the right place. There is a handout that we'll be making available. It might already be available actually as part of the webinar, which includes all the links that we're actually talking through today. So these few links that are on the slides now, and they are also contained in that document. So you will be able to get your hands on those, and you don't have to try and write down these really long URLs I've popped on the screen. So if you've done one of these groups with us recently, we've started to use more functions of GoToWebinar, and one of those things is polls. So I thought I'd kick us off just by asking a question around COVID-19 actually, because we're interested in what people's thoughts are around how you think that COVID-19 will affect your business. So there's a poll up on the screen now. Okay, so specifically asking questions about learner numbers and what do you see, or how do you see your learner numbers going in the next 6 months? And yeah, we'll just collect this information. It's really just information out of interest for us. People are now feeding back on that. That's cool, right? So the poll's been running for almost 30 seconds now. We've got only 31% of you have voted. So if you just will keep that running. Interestingly, someone's actually asked, do I mean here new starts or people who are already on program? Then actually, I was actually referring to new starts. So you know, what would your new starts look like over the next 6 months? That's a very good question. From April, thank you very much for April. The poll's almost been on for a minute. Interestingly, quite a few people have. We've had over half of you now have actually interacted with it, but a couple of people have said that the poll isn't allowing you to answer. I actually don't have an answer to that because I can see that quite a lot of people are now answering. So it might just be a case of you guys need to get the window in focus or something like that. And so you literally answer just by clicking the little radio button, and it should be as simple as that. And like I said, there's now 70% of you voted. All right, and Nat, who's from Tribal, has actually just said she had to minimize the window for it to work. I'm not quite sure on that, but right. So you select your option, and then there is a submit button as well. It's important that we can get these right because there's another 5 throughout this user group. Thank you very much for that, folks. We've now almost 80% of you have voted. So if you did have trouble there, it might be specific to yourself, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, the poll's now been on for 2 minutes, so I will close that poll now. And then on other Tribal, we'll have a look at that as we go later on. Okay, so a couple of things now that we just wanted to reference. Okay, I put this up at the last few groups that we've run. Okay, so it's just a challenge for you to think about throughout this user group. Okay, so if this is a quote that I've heard many times from different customers, as you know, I've been in this market a long time, and we absolutely have lots of people who take our upgrades. Okay, but then don't necessarily think about how that affects how they operate as a business. There is something in every upgrade that we feel could change the way that you operate as a business, and so just think about that as we go through today. And then also just think about it in relation to things that are in Maytas and that have been in Maytas now for a little while, but we're not that we've seen people starting to pick up, but I just wanted to almost re-advertise this back. Okay, so last year, actually a little bit in 2018 actually, but then throughout last year we were actively developing and promoting the fact that we've now written links for Maytas through to Smart Assessor on one file. Okay, so we use the APIs on the on both of those systems side. We absolutely can make sure that you don't have to dual key data into Smart Assessor on one file because you can just automatically send it up from Maytas. We send assessor records, employee records, learner records. We send the trainee employer links and the trainee assessor links as well. And then in both systems, we pull down detailed information about the progress of those learners in those systems. So that's us just telling you that that's something that we've got available, and there's a poll related to this shortly. And then similarly, we have, it was a good couple of releases ago now, although this has actually become quite prominent now in the current state of the world. We know that quite a lot of people use IPEGs out in the market, so IPEGs is a good tool for, and we promote it for its use of offline data capture, although you can use IPEGs for other things, including getting people to fill in online forms. obviously Maytas has equivalent functionality to that as well. But if you are an iPegs user, then we have integration now from iPegs over into Maytas. So if you're not utilising that, if you're literally collecting data in iPegs and rekeying it into Maytas, then please do get in touch, because you don't have to do that. And then similarly, if you don't use iPegs but you are looking for offline data capture solutions, then actually we're now able to resell iPegs. So you don't have to go to iPegs and then come to Tribal. You can just come to us and we'll make sure that you're set up with iPegs and all the integration points that you need to get your data through into Maytas. Yeah. So there's another poll. They're not all as quick and fast as this, but we were curious for those who have joined the call is which ones of the current systems that we've just put up, plus a couple of others, and that you currently use. So hopefully people will get a better experience with this poll. I've put up there that which of these systems do you currently use? So you have OneFile, Smart Assessor, Learning Assistant. Do you use iPegs? And then do you use any other e-portfolios? We generally covered the main ones there. And the responses are coming in much quicker this time, so I think that people have got over the initial problems that they were seeing. I'm just going to leave this one open for a minute, so it's already had 30 seconds. And we can see that quite a lot of you are answering OneFile and Smart Assessor, a few people using iPegs. So for those who are answering it and aren't currently looking at the links that we've set up between the two systems, please do get in touch. Trevor and or Helen, who are on the call, could do you a grand demonstration of the way those two systems interact with Maytas nowadays. Another 5 seconds, and yeah, thank you very much for that. We've had a really good response rate on that again. Excellent. And a few people have just reported that if you were struggling, the deal is that if the screen is in full screen mode, you cannot select, but if you choose to resize your GoToWebinar window, then you can select the options. Thank you very much, Jim, for working that out. Without further ado, we're actually going to move on now to talk about the 5.19 release. So the 5.19 release was released in March. It was the very back end of the month. I can't remember the week commencing date now. I'm sure everybody agrees that all the days are just merging into one currently. But there's some headlines in there that we wanted to talk to you about today, and Trevor first and then moving on to Helen are going to demo to you. Okay, so we have lots of things in there. We've put an import watcher on our standard import functionality. That's just pretty cool, and something that we've been lacking in that area for a while, so you can automate your standard imports. From an eTrack point of view, we've got a learner timeline that we've implemented on the learner login. From a Maytas and eTrack combined, we've got the digital data capture developments. We've done more and more work on that now, which the guys will be showing you. We updated module registers in Maytas, so you can now schedule events in the future. We did lots of community ideas based on the input that people put into the online communities forum. We actually did some updates to our own communities functionality in eTrack as well, which was based on focus group feedback, so that was pretty cool. And then we have developed an interface to our Tribal Engage Learner app, which I'll be talking you through once Trevor and Helen have gone through their things. So at this point, through the wonder of technology, I am going to change the presenter over to Trevor. Okay, which hopefully Trevor have now done. Hopefully Trevor is going to be able to unmute himself. There you go. I've now changed the presenter to Trevor. Just asking if he can.
Thank you, Mike.
Wonderful. I can hear you there, sir. I'm going to mute myself now, although no doubt I might interrupt you as you go, because I usually do.
Absolutely. Thank you. So Mike mentioned a few things on that slide. We're going to look at particularly the Maytas things in my 5, 10, maybe 12 minutes of session time now, and then I'm going to be handing over to Helen, who's going to show you all of the eTrack 5.19 upgrade pieces. So I think the place to start with this is probably the most exciting part. I mean, it's all good. You know, I love this stuff. But if we look at the exports tab at the top up here, one thing that Mike mentioned there is the fact that under standard import, so if you do have the standard import function, and the standard import function allows you to pull in CSV Excel files into Maytas to bring bulk data in, whether that's data coming from a subcontractor perhaps, new starts from another part of the provision, or even an iPegs import, then we can now watch those folders as well. So how this works, in the background in settings, you set up a folder system. You can do that against your C drive perhaps, and then you can then set up folders against different imports. So you can see on the left-hand side here, I've got two examples, Hartley Training, who is a subcontractor, and an IPEGS import, just to show you how this works. You can see at the moment we've got some tabs here, status, details, schedule and log. Obviously we're idle at the moment, it's not picking anything up and not running. However, in the details, what we can do is select, first of all, a control file that's pointing to a subfolder for the folder that we set up on our server or our database, wherever we want to hold that main folder that I mentioned in settings. We can see here I've got a name up there, Hartley Training, and just a little bit of text there just to remind me of what this particular import does, because we might have many down the left-hand side. You can see in normal format, if you are familiar with the standard import, then the data processing remains the same. But on the right-hand side, you can retain copies of import files. So as these come in, they will drop into a completed folder for you in your subfolder here above. And then, of course, the most important part is the fact that we can schedule these out. So you might be familiar with this. This remains the same as the report center. We've used the same functionality to allow us to schedule the import of our files. So we can see these are running in this particular example each day, but we could go down to hours if we wanted to. So, you know, we could go right down to every 2 minutes, every minute, whatever we wanted to do. You do get a log for each of these, and the log is also stored in your subfolder as well. So again, just another example, IPEGS import. On the left-hand side here, just apply that off and move. Then we can see that we've got these features as well. You can override these at the top. You can run these at any time, so you can override the schedule by pressing run. You can also reset these if you change any of the settings, and it will reschedule all of this batch. So this is a really good, important feature and the first part of our 5.19 upgrade. A few things within the report center to show you next. So if we come into the report center itself, a few things linked to reports, and I'll come back into a single report as well within this. But if we just look at, first of all, the volume check, one thing this report is set up to do now is to pull in CSV files. So we can run these and push these out as CSV files. So we're just going to edit setup here. You can see that there is now an option to choose the CSV function, which wasn't there before. Also within these, in the schedule batches, we open up a scheduled batch now. We can see down the left-hand side, so nothing's changed really at the front end, but you'll notice now there's a saved reports function. And very similar to the scheduler I've just shown you, you can set up a main folder, and then anything you put inside here becomes a subfolder for that. So you can now save reports to your C drive, for example. So as these are running, you are capturing moments in time as you run your reports on your schedules. So that's another useful feature for everybody. And just while I'm in reports, and to save me going back out again, if I just run the volume check report, this report specifically in the audit folder in the reports library has changed slightly. So now the count on this in the starters column is counting pot starts, period of training starts. And that just means that the count mimics what the leavers column and the achievers column already did. So they were already counting up in pot starts. Now the starters column does that as well. So that, again, another interesting feature, and it just means that we now have consistency in the count volume for our starts, leavers and achievers. So just moving forward a little bit, the next feature within the system, those people that use screen design will understand that sometimes using the grid editor can be quite confusing. What we've done is made this a little bit easier to understand. So in the grid editor here, I've got the app part 4 grid open just to show you what I'm talking about here, because it's a good example. If I just edit this grid out, you'll see now we've got some highlighted areas. And what this is really showing us is the descriptive name for each of these fields and the database name. And we do understand that down the bottom here where you are dragging the columns around and turning these columns on and off, you will also change the terminology in the headers here as well. But this goes back to just show you what that descriptive name is, start date, and the database name. So start date underneath that, or expected completion date against planned end date in these examples. So again, another really good feature, allows you to draw the eye straight into where those changes might happen, and particularly where those fields are coming from. Just one for the Scottish people on the call, if there are any on the call indeed. We come into a student record or a learner record here, we can see that we've got a FIPS tab down the left-hand side for the Scottish funding. The new change here, if I scroll this to the bottom, is the addition of all the lever details. And now we can import and see the details coming in from FIPS against the lever entities as well. So as we are importing the data, perhaps using our scheduled reports now, our scheduled imports, we can see that information coming into the FIPS tab. So another feature that's quite good within the system, something that I've been looking at quite recently as well, is our enhancement to the module registers function. If any of you use the module registers function, you'd be interested in what I'm about to show you here. So we come into Tools and we go into the module editor. One thing that we can do now with the module registers, and module registers is linked to objectives, so we can set codes in there and then set up register marking, if you like. We can now forecast this forward. So in other words, we can set up a register to look forward in time over a period if we want to. So I'm just going to pick up a code in here. And if we just pick up Advanced Health and Safety is one of my short courses, we can pick up any occurrence codes here and we can push these out to the out into the future. So for example, you can see my start date and end date is ad hoc. So if I was to go into module registers as I normally would, and I will do this in just a few seconds, is I can set these into the future as well. So I can say that I might want this to go out to the end of June. So let's say the 29th of June. And I only want this particular course to run on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I might want to do Fridays as well. I can set times for this in advance. So I'm setting this course up every day to the end of June for 2 hours. I can press next on this, and you can see it's telling me that I've already set this in the future to a point because these are yellow. But now I've added all these extra columns. So these are extra courses that I can run out, and I can use these as I need to. All I need to do is to press next here, and that sets that up. Just to show you what this looks like when we get into the module registers feature itself, this has changed itself as well. There are some extra features in here. I'm just going to make sure I refresh the page just to show you what I mean. But if I pick up that course as I normally would have done, Advanced Health and Safety short course in this example, and then picked up the actual occurrence code, in the normal format, I would have been able to just do today's register marking. So I'd have been able to load this up and then mark this register. I can now look forward as well using select from existing. Now I've chosen that course as to what is available for me in this particular course view. Now I've rigged this up right the way through to the end of June. I can see those entities as well, so I can see what's coming. We couldn't do this before, and this is an excellent feature. It just allows you to look forward in time to say that this is planned, isn't planned, and you can go back in and plan this if you need to. So, little pregnant pause of breath for me at the moment. One last thing to show you. Some of you will be aware that we have a way of sending forms in and out of Maytas to learners and employers. We can now do this to assessors as well. So I'm in an assessor record, and what I'm going to do is lift up 2 forms to send out, and then with the magic of the internet, Helen's going to pick up those 2 forms to sign. So in this example, we're going to use the data authentication to do 2 things. We have a data queue grid against the assessor as we have against the employer and the learner as well. First of all, I'm going to pick up one particular type. So the first thing I want to do is send an assessor a form to sign on behalf of a trainee. So first thing I need to do here is choose a name to send that for. In this case, it's going to be Abigail Brown, somebody in my database. I need to send a form to Abigail Brown, and the form I'm going to be sending here is a break-in learning request because I need things like last date of learning and things like that from the assessor. We can set a due date if we want to. That'll just set us a reminder, and we can press OK. Now, the other type of form we can send here to the assessor is something from MIS for the assessor to do, the assessor to sign, confirm. This could be a compliance form. So let's do that as well. This time, all I need to do is choose the update compliance paperwork in my example. And again, I can set a due date for this. So again, with the magic of the internet, once I press apply to this, this is sending that form off, and Helen will pick this up. So this is the perfect segue now for me to change presenter over to Helen.
Now guys, as you do that and you deal with the technology, which hopefully will be seamless, I'll just pick up on a few questions that have been asked if you don't mind. First off, somebody's referenced the fact that they're currently still working on version 5.18. Not all our cloud hosted environments have been upgraded just yet. There's a slight delay there. which was unfortunate. But they'll be upgraded in the next couple of weeks. So if you're on our cloud hosting environment and you're looking at stuff that you will be getting your hands on, that you might not have just got your hands on yet. We had a specific question about the module registered features. It is an additional license, module registers, but we're going to send a survey at the end of the use group. So at that point, if you just want a quick look, you can basically say that you're interested in some more information, and we'll give you some more information. And then finally, just to point out that on the last user group, we specifically had the feedback that we needed to upgrade the grid editor. That came in from Ben, and we've done some work in that area now, so I'll be interested in your feedback. Helen, it looks like you're ready to go, so I will
yeah,
now,
so.
and thank you very much.
Okay, hi there everybody. So I'm just going to walk you through as Trevor set up those forms. So first off, we're just logging in to eTrack as an assessor, so our guy Ruben Gomez. What we should then see when it opens up is those data collection forms that Trevor set up for us. As you can see, it gives us a total of forms that we'd created, so I'd already created an additional one. And then it lists in the drop-down what those forms are and potentially a due date for those as well. So we can see here we've got compliance paperwork, so it's asking in there we've set up for the assessor's vehicle details, and we've got a break in learning as well, so to confirm the last attendance date for a learner. So if I just click into the compliance paperwork and say OK to open up that form, you'll see as that opens we've got certain fields at the top here that are set as read-only, so they can't be edited. And then down the base of the screen is where we're collecting that information. So we've asked questions such as registration number, vehicle make and model, engine size, and then we're getting them to tick to agree that those vehicle details have been set up. And then we've also got the ability here to choose files to be uploaded as well. And if we were to save that, then it would save it and be in progress. If we submit it, then it completes it. So if I just step back to that screen before, you'll see again, because I didn't submit it, it's still showing me as having 3 forms to collect. And then if I just click down into our form for Abigail Brown, so again, as Trevor showed you there, this is our break-in learning request. So again, we've got some read-only fields at the top here that we can't edit. And then down the base of the screen, it's showing there our last date of learning, so we can select a particular date. And then we've got our withdrawal reasons. So we've got our drop down and our ability there to pick from the settings we've set up within the system. And then most importantly there, we're agreeing on behalf of the learner that that break in learning is valid. We would then just tick that box to confirm and agree. And again, those same settings where we could save if we got partially through the form, and we can submit it when we're completed as well. And as I say, when we return to our home page, once those forms had been done, that message would then disappear from the screen. So when we were to log back on, it wouldn't be there. Or if I cancel as I'm going through and I'm going to come back and do it later, you'll see it just removes that message from the screen for me. Okay, so now I'm going to continue on, and I'm just going to log out as our assessor and log in as one of our learners. So we're going to go in as Abigail Brown. Okay, so if I just there click log in, and then it opens it up, and then the feature that I'm showing you now is our timeline at the top of the screen here. So you can see the timeline will display for learners on their home page, but it will also show for assessors when they're viewing learner records. So it's showing you all the key events for the learner you're viewing, so visits, start dates, due dates, and you can also click and drag and scroll across the screen there, so you can go into the past, into the future. You can see if I hover over an item that just here on the top right, it then identifies what that particular item is. And if I was logged in as an assessor and it was a visit, for example, I could then drill down into that if I wanted to. Where there's a number here, that's just showing me that I can't actually view all of those tiles at the moment because the screen isn't large enough. If I have a wheel mouse, I can just wheel on in there, and then you'll see when I get to that correct resolution, it's just showing me now a particular date I'm in, and then it breaks it down into those coloured blocks for me. If I just scroll out, all of these colours are set by you as a system setting, but you can change those colours as you wish to as well, so you could override them and change them as you want. And if I just click into the little eye here, it then shows you the breakdown of those items as well. And you could obviously untick in there if you wanted certain things and you could update the timeline. And you can also, in system settings, if there's a certain item you don't want anyone to ever see, you can untick that and save that with those settings yourself as well. Okay, so that's all of our timeline functionality. So then I'm just going to step you through some of the customer ideas that we've had come in and that we've actioned within the software. So just to show you within a screenshot that I've created first off, so this is within Maytas. So to show you that you can now order tabs in eTrack that you've created, so under the trainee, what I've done here is created a form to capture PPE checks, so dates, sizes, whether training's been completed. And then you can see here on the left-hand side, I now have the ability to give it a unique display index number. So then if I just click back within eTrack, and I'm going to come out again as Abigail and just sign back in as Ruben, so you can see where that's changed. Just bear with me a second as that opens up. Obviously still shows our data collection form there. And if I click into our apprentices, and then we click within Abigail Brown, again, just bear with it while it opens up a second, you can now see there at the end of that row is my PPE equipment. So after all of the system defaults, you can then create these in the order that you wish to have them as well. Okay, something else we've now got as well is the team load case screen now allows you to add pot start dates as well. So this is within your system settings. So just to show you where that's held, so if I go within settings, and then we're going to look in the system configuration, under our assessor login, and then just scroll down the screen within general here. So you'll see down the base of that list here, we've got use pot start date and ILR planned end date, or use pot start date and expected completion dates. We've got tick boxes against there, and then we've got the ability to toggle them on and off as well. So just to show you what that looks like on the screen as well, if we just go to browse our team, select a particular team member, and there you can see it's added in that additional column of pot start date. Okay, we've now also got the ability to view the employment type on the view details screen. So the view details section of the learner record includes this. So again, if we just go back to our learner Abigail Brown, and then at the top of the screen here, our view details, and we can see now employment type has been added to that particular screen there. Okay, we've also got the ability to search through on employer postcode. So if we go down into our employer editor on the left-hand side here, and then I just click on search, you'll see now we've got a postcode box available. So I can obviously tap within there, my particular postcode, click on to find, and then it brings me back all of those employers associated with that postcode. Okay, we've also now got the ability to do an advanced search by expected completion date against our apprentices. So if I click over here and we just click into apprentices and search, click within advanced, and then you'll see at the base of the screen here, I've got expected completion date. So I've got a variety of options within there. I've got earlier than, later than, or equal to. So as an example, I could search on later than, pick a particular date. So if we say the end of the week, click on to search, and then it will return all of those apprentices who've got that date. And obviously you could build up a more complex search with those other fields in there as well. Okay, we've got the ability to restrict assessors from adding visits or modules to learners. So this prevents an assessor from being able to add modules to a learner, not from creating modules in the module editor. So if I go into our web user editor, and within here you can see I could do it by user, or I could do it by group as well. So I'm just going to do it by an individual user. So we just search through for one of my assessors, and we can see here we've got Fran Greenway. Open them up, click within their permissions, and then if I just look in the assessor section down here, you'll see now I've got the ability to restrict adding TR modules, and I've also got the ability to restrict adding visits as well. So it's just a case of ticking those boxes, clicking on save, and then when they next log in, they would have that ability removed or added depending on what you've done there as well. Okay, and then just finally, I'm going to show you a couple of improvements within communities. So community admins can now directly edit resources in a community rather than having to go to the community homepage first. So if we just click down the side here, go within our community, and then as an example, just to show you within the program induction, and within one of our pages, we've got welcome to your pathway. And then you'll see we've got all the information here on the main screen, but at the top right here, we've got the ability to edit. So just by clicking within edit, it then opens up that information, and you can see here all of my text is within there. So I could edit that as I wish to. And then at the top of the screen, I would just click on save, and that would be immediately updated within there. We've also now got the ability within communities to create employer community groups. So they're accessible just by employer users and community admins. So if I click within Staff Learning Zone, and then over on the right hand side here, if I click within Actions, Edit Community, and then the second tab along, I've got Groups. So here within my groups, I could click to add a new group. So I've got a group set within here, so just to show you those settings, so allowing forum, requires moderation, and the membership type. So if I just click into edit for that, you can see that information there. I can also add users within there. Something else I can do as well is we have a new membership type called employers and trainees. So if I was just to switch to that, you can see I can do that, and then I can just tap in an employer's name, search through for them, and then it allows me to add them to that particular group within the community. So it's only available if it's the only group within that community. Okay, so that's all of the new functionality that I was going to show you, and now I shall just hand back to Mike.
Thank you very much, Helen. That was excellent. I will just grab the presenter view back. Oh, there you go. Yeah, you. I have an awful feeling I've just selected the wrong screen. Just give me a moment. Screen. Oh no, there you go. No, it's selected the correct screen. Right, so before I crack on with the bits that I was going to cover, we've had lots of questions through, which is good. So first off, Helen, you referenced the fact that you can use the wheel mouse to zoom in and out of the learner timeline. If you're on a touch device, so using an iPad or a Android device or whatever, a tablet phone, then you can just pinch and pull them back and forth, which is really quite nice, which is pretty good. A couple of other things. A couple of people have asked specifically around module registers and I think for the form filling in stuff, so sending forms to assessors and learners and employers, whether or not you actually need to be using eTrack. Now that you don't need to be using eTrack to actually access both of those things, although you do access the marking and the actual form filling in and out via the eTrack technology, if you like. But at that point, I think when Trevor demos that, he just refers to it as Maytas Web. So you don't need to be using eTrack as an ePortfolio, but you would need just that tech in place so that people can then log in and mark registers and fill in forms if that's what they're doing. So a couple of other things that came in via the chat. We had a very good suggestion actually, because we can now give forms to staff members. Would it be useful to actually open the form that we want them to see in a different window so that they can then carry on browsing through eTrack to actually collect the information that they might need? That's a great suggestion. I was wondering, that was from Ben, I was wondering why that hadn't come up before, Ben, but I think it's because previously we only ever had learners and employees filling in those forms, so and it's kind of a one-time hit for them. And we had some good feedback on the timeline. April, thank you very much. So the timeline looked really good, and also the extended search features as well. And then we've had a couple of people ask, are we recording this session? Yes, we are. However, it was 2 minutes late because I was meant to press record and forgot. Trevor jumped in at 2 minutes past 10 and actually pressed the button for me. So I thank Trevor for that. I've left one thing on screen here. I did actually just have up a link to our online documentation. Okay, so if you haven't been to docs.maytas.tribalgroup.com, then we would encourage you all to do so. One last thing just that's included in this upgrade, which is actually covered in a video in the on my documentation, is the fact that in Maytas, the QAR cache, which previously you would have always had to click a button to update, it can now automatically update itself, so it can do this overnight, 3 times a day, whatever. Okay, so that was from lots of feedback that we've had, because obviously we'll get quite a few people run our QAR reports, but at that point, if they haven't updated the cache, then the information in the QAR might not be quite up to date, so you can automatically do that, which is quite nice. And as a final reminder for those who haven't seen, then you can go to docs.maytas.tribalgroup.com for more information. And we're going to talk a little bit later on regarding videos. A few people have just fed back in the thread that we thought we may have rushed our demo a little bit, so I'm sorry that you think that. But we have extended demonstrations of everything that the guys have run through this morning in the videos that are available on the online docs and via communities. And Karen's going to talk a little bit more about them in a little while. So the last thing from a new features point of view from 5.19, okay, is an introduction to Tribal Engage. So I know that a few customers have seen Tribal Engage. So Tribal Engage is a student app, a learner app in this context, that is available. It's been written by Tribal, but it's actually a product that actually spans all our record systems. So, for example, our EBS College system has been integrating with Tribal Engage for some time now, and we've got some good use cases there. Okay, so as of 5.19, Maytas now interfaces with the Tribal Engage app. I'm going to show you what that looks like in just a moment. Okay, but it's just as a way of an introduction, Tribal Engage is a private social media app. It's used across Tribal products. What does that mean? It's basically Facebook for your institute. Okay, so it's instead of trying to contact learners via social media channels, you can literally give them their own social media engine within your institute. It's particularly relevant in work-based learning, and we're getting lots of good feedback around this because obviously all your learners predominantly are remote. Staff and learners can interact with the app. Employers can't as of yet, but it's just staff and learners based. We're interested in feedback on how you feel employers would interact with this. And then key functions include blast messaging, personal messaging, public groups, private groups, newsfeeds, quick links, notifications. It's basically an app that we can get onto the learner's phone and staff members' phone, and at that point we've got lots of things that we can do with that kind of functionality. So prerequisites, what do you need? Well, you need Maytas. That's the essential part, but that's it really. With just Maytas, you could start to use Tribal Engage. You could create user accounts in Maytas and off they go into Engage, and people can start to log into the app. But actually, to make the best use of Maytas to Engage integration, we've utilized the contact log. So you can send messages directly to the app in a learner's phone. You can we utilize the report generator and auto communications with the report generator so that you can schedule things like happy birthday messages, as the daft example I always give. But you can basically schedule notifications and messages to learners based on data in your system is the thing to take from that. And then if you're using the eTrack learner and staff logins, then actually your users can actually now single sign on from the app into those portals. So it's really seamless for the users. So they, once they've entered the password once into an app, then that's it, and they can just then get into the relevant parts of the eTrack portal. So I would have loved to absolutely now share my screen and show you my phone on my screen. Trials of that didn't go too well. Okay, so what we've actually done is record a video that actually runs through Tribal Engage as a piece of software on a phone. I'm going to kick that video on now, and I'm going to do my very best to just talk over the video. But you know what I'm like, and if you've heard me present before, I often go off on segues, so hopefully the video won't get away from me. So we've got the learner here, and we've basically got the video on the learner's phone. Okay, so they have access to the Tribal Engage app. The app is branded and named as per your institute, so this could be called Mike's Training Provider app, for example. The user's got a profile, so the learner's got a profile on the app. The reason for that is to try and get them some ownership. Okay, so they can say things that they're interested in, look at their connections and things like that. Interestingly, the connection side of things, you can only talk to somebody in the app for somebody you've accepted a connection between, so you can't have your learners spamming each other and things like that. Okay, so it's completely safeguarded. And similarly, we've got groups within the app. So instead of one-to-one conversations, you can be a member of a group. These groups are actually fed from Maytas data. So we will put everybody in a module group, so everybody's working towards the same qualification could go into a group. And similarly, everybody who's being looked after by the same staff member could go into a group as well. So you could have assessor groups and module groups. You'll see that when you get into group posts, you can upload documents and share resources. That's really cool. So, you know, here we've got practice learning handbook that's been provided either against the module or from the assessor. It's one message and it's available to everybody using that group. You can like on things, you can comment on things. It's very much like Facebook, Twitter, you know, all the other social media platforms that are out there. And as you can see, because it's like those platforms, you can see that it's all quite easy to use and quite intuitive. So not only I've gone through the professional group examples of academic groups, if you like, things that people are learning towards, but you can also use groups for non-academic things. Here we go, the learners part of the Exotic Animal Appreciation Club, which is a pretty decent example of how you might use this. So the idea here is obviously that you can try and create communities within your learners, and so that they can discuss things, you know, maybe not necessarily relating to their portfolios or their learning. Okay, so if you go back to the home screen here, you'll see now an example of a notification coming through. Okay, so this particular notification actually comes from Maytas. So I'll just give it a second, you'll see this comes through. So there you go, there is a message being sent. Now in this example here, this message has actually come from the Maytas contact log. Right, so someone sat in there and sent this particular learner a message. Or this could have also been automated, but I've just given the example here of this has come directly. And at this point, what this message has said is that your assessor is due to visit you tomorrow. That is more likely to be an automated message. And at this point, the learner then just goes in and says, yeah, absolutely, you know, assessor, thanks. I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. Okay, so the idea is obviously that there is that back and forth between the learner and their assessors in this case, which is really quite important. There's other things that you can then see. So as in all social media platforms, you can choose to follow things. So this particular learner has followed these various different pages that are available. So that as a result of that, they then get notifications from that page. You'll see in this example, we've got stuff going out to Prevent. You know, Prevent's obviously a big thing that everybody has to deal with now. And then similarly, you can see posts in there regarding Prevent. You can, from there as well, you can also get into things like safeguarding pages, I think is one of the examples that we've got in here as well. Again, quite key things that you have to give your learners access to. People often struggle with how you can give them access to. Well, the whole philosophy is that everything that the learner needs to interface with you as an organisation is done via the app. Okay, so I think at this point the demo is going to go back off to the home page, going to receive another notification. It's just another example of how your Maytas team could be actually interfacing with your learners via the app. The notification, I think in this example, gives, it basically asks for something very specific to this learner. We just have a look at that. I think it asks them to bring in some, there you go. So next time we see you, you need to bring your passport in because you keep forgetting. And it's just a nice example of how you can just get hold of the student or the learner in a reliable way instead of relying on things like email and text message, which are shown nowadays to not be as effective and also cost you money. And obviously messaging to the app doesn't cost a thing. The app does have a cost, of course it does. But once you pay for that, you know, then you can message as many times as you want. Now, interesting, now the learner's going to go back to the home page, and from here you will see that they've got an e-portfolio link or my portfolio link. They can just click on that, and because it's linking out to eTrack, it's a single sign-on through. You can actually link out to any system in there, but we can only guarantee that you won't need to sign on again with eTrack because that's our technology. So you could link in there to OneFile or Smart Assessor, however, they would need to then log into that portal. Now, because eTrack in this case is fully mobile responsive, the data in this demo isn't that great, unfortunately, but I apologise for that. But because it's mobile responsive, it just sits as if it's within the app. So you'll hopefully all agree that it's pretty seamless to the learner. There's lots of things that you can see in here, things like progress and stuff like that. So basically they can get access to the whole ePortfolio functionality that they will get access to if they just went to, etrack.com. They can absolutely do that just all via the app. It basically puts everything into the app. So like I say, when we're implementing this with sites, because we've done that now, we absolutely just keep banging out the door the fact that if the student, the learner has a question and says, where do I go for? You just say, you go to your app and you'll get everything available to you in the app. The video actually runs for 8 minutes, but you get the idea now. So I actually just going to jump to one thing which has actually been quite relevant over the last few weeks, because you can schedule events in the app. Okay, and we're looking at how we can actually feed these from Maytas. But in this example here, the event that's been scheduled actually links out to a Zoom call. So if you haven't used Zoom at home for talking to your elderly relatives, or all the different reasons that you might use it, you might use it professionally. We use Microsoft Teams at Tribal. But basically, this is a nice little example of how via the app, you can join a Zoom call, and other obviously media platforms are available. I think I'll put a pause on the video there just for now, because you get the idea. The video is available, or will be available on our Tribal channels, as are lots of videos around Engage. I thought it was interesting just to highlight the fact that we've actually got a couple of training providers that already use this. They actually use this standalone, not linked to Maytas, which they were kind of like the pilot sites for us last year. And interestingly, you've got some usage stats here from just one of those. I'll not name them. I don't know what to call actually. But you'll see that the messages, so there's total messages that get sent in the app month on month. And they were very happy with the level of usage. They're not overly large training provider. They've got plenty of learners though. And so on any one month, they're generally getting around 400 messages a month on average. You'll see over the last couple of years. Yeah, very interestingly, but not too surprising, over the last few months, the app use has absolutely spiked, because all the learners now who are not going into work for whatever reasons, all the reasons that we know, they are now using the app as their absolute communication medium. We've seen exactly the same kind of spike on any of our institutes, whether it be university or a college, who have already invested in the app. So it's something that we think is really interesting, and some of that data that we'll continue to monitor. So it's time for me to just throw up another poll before I introduce another voice to this call. So the next poll is, we're just interested in what methods of remote interaction are you currently using with your students? And so we're interested in this obviously based on the fact that we've now got a learner app out there. We're just interested in what people's thoughts are around how you currently interact with them. So I'm going to leave this open for a minute. It's currently been open 20 seconds, and we'll let this run through. A couple of questions come through as I've talked through that. So is Engage a paid for module? Yes, it is. You'll be able to, at the end of this, basically suggest if you'd like to hear more from Tribal about things that we've talked about today, so you'll be able to tick the box and we'll give you some more information on that. And then someone's had yeah, Nigel has specifically asked, Nigel, I mean, name dropping you there, for the for the data authentication stuff, are we going to add the ability for an employer to agree to multiple learner agreements in one go? Yes, we are, Nigel. It isn't in 519 though, because we have developed it, but it was ended up being a little bit risky, so we need to have a chat about that. But yes, we are building that functionality. So thank you very much to those who have responded to the poll. I will close the poll at this point, and I'm going to hand over to a voice that you've heard many a time, and for those who ring up our support desk, you'll have definitely heard it, because Ben is going to come online, and Ben is going to talk us through an update on support. So Ben, I can see that you are unmuted, so you'll be talking in a moment. I've just handed over the presenter to yourself, so you can drive your own slides.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
I certainly can, Ben. Thank you very much. I will mute myself now and let you crack on.
Okay. Morning. Obviously, as Mike just has alluded to, I'm the manager of the Maytas support team. I've spoken to the majority of you, I imagine, in the past. Not as fun as the demonstrations and new functionality that Trevor and Helen and Mike have just been demonstrating, but I think it's important that you get an update from the support side of things so that you can see what we're doing and what we're trying to change to ultimately help you guys out and get more out of your systems. So I'll just crack on. Support statistics wise, we've done a lot of work around trying to drill down the number of new calls that we get. A couple of reasons for that is the more we can drill that down, the better software offering, the better support service we're giving you, and the better content we're making available to you. So obviously, as you can see, over between October and April of this year, you can sort of see that trending downwards, which is what we wanted. Communities has to take some applause for that, I think, and Karen in particular for the new video content that we get put together, Trevor as well. We hope you find that beneficial. We hope it serves as a much better first port of call than a question into the support desk, because it's there, it's referenceable, it's always available. So the more you do, sort of head to that YouTube site and head to our communities pages. Hopefully, if there is anything missing, we can obviously build on it, and you just have to let us know. But the more we can put on there is all aimed to streamline the service that you're able to provide, basically. So over between October and April of this year, there was just over 3,000 calls opened. We've closed almost 3,500 because of the changes that we made to our work item process. Obviously, some get superseded. A lot turn into optimization of what are considered issues with the system, whereas really the more stories for us to improve it further. So we've had a real drive on trying to bring them down and trying to make sure that we cover off anything that we feel is a particular pain point for a group of customers. We don't want things, if there's no workaround, if there's no way to get around something, you can rest assured that it falls on myself to make sure that I talk to Mike and Karen and the developers to make sure they understand it from your perspective. Average response times is another area where we've done a lot of work. I know sort of 18 months ago it wasn't in a particularly happy place, and we've brought that down from sort of 40-50 minutes down to 8.4 over that sort of 6-month period. We've now gone 7 months, I think, without missing a response SLA, which is great from where we were 18 months 2 years ago. And again, that's down to a concoction of things such as having a real drive on internally on our support guys to make sure they understand the importance of acknowledging the issues that you're having, and ultimately communities and YouTube has played a part in that as well, because it allows us to give you a much better answer, a much more informative answer, quicker than we would have been able to previously. The average call resolution time for the last 6 months is for a P3 call is currently 16.56 days. I'm guessing some of you will be able to hear the disappointment in my voice when I have to say that. Not where I want it to be, but granted that it is something that we're looking to work on, and our sort of resolution time SLA sits at around 95%. Still a good percentage, and we're happy with where it is, but there's more that we can do, and I know there's more that we can do, so that's something that we will be working on over the next 6 months. Customer satisfaction, you can sort of see from the numbers that are on the slide there. So between October and April, we had 43 5-star BOMGAR surveys from dialing into users' machines to try and assist them with issues. That's 91.48% of all of our dial-ins have resulted in that 5-star survey. So that's good to know that what we're doing is appreciated for the most part, and that's something that we'll continue to do. Remedy Force incident exit surveys are the little survey that you get asked to complete when we close an incident that you've raised. I can't stress enough how important it is for you guys to fill those in, albeit that I get that everyone has other things that they'd rather be doing, but ultimately that helps drive where we go and what we do in terms of what we change to try and help. Whether it's good, bad or indifferent, we want to hear it, so that we can look at what we can do better. A lot's come out from those exit surveys around the way we deal with some poor scores. We've now set something up with our customer success team, so we actively contact people who scored us a 1 or a 2. So we'd follow that up and find out where we went wrong, what we could do better. So the more that you can complete for us, and the more that you can talk to us, ultimately, the better that our service will become. But you can sort of see from those stats where the service that we give, for the most part, is a very good one. So I guess we want to continue to work with you guys to make that even better. The YouTube side of things is something I touched on a little bit earlier. Between October and April, we had 16 new subscribers to the channel, 2,100 views, and over 139 hours of watched content, and that's just in that 6-month period. So you can sort of see there with the top videos how popular the content is, the smart assessor integration, the ILR changes, which hopefully we will be able to do year on year. And there's all sorts on there. It's a really good place. Even our support staff use it so that we make sure that we watch the same content you do, so we can understand or try and understand your point of view when you come to us with an issue around a particular area in the system. Other than that, that's all I really have for you. Just the fact that we want to continue to build the service that we offer you. We're there for you guys. The more you talk to us, we're never there to try and make things difficult. We're all about making sure you get a system working in the most in the best way it possibly can. So the more you talk to us, the more we can do. And just thanks very much for bearing with us when we do have when it does take us some time. But that's
Ben,
it for me.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to let you know that April has kindly said that she always receives brilliant service from you and the team. She'd like a specific shout out to Ryan and Abby.
Good.
So a little bit of feedback for you. You can take that to those guys when you speak to them later on.
I will indeed.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ben. And at this point, I'm going to hand over the presenting to Karen. So, Karen, if you don't mind, I'm just going to talk over your bit just for a first second or two while you share your screen. So a lot of you will know Karen as our product owner. Karen's recently, only very recently, switched that role. Karen she's still obviously a big part of everything that we're doing, but she's specifically now got a job as a knowledge manager, which is quite key and a good segue from everything that Ben's just gone through in terms of videos and trying to improve our service. So Karen's got some slides which she's going to run you through just regarding to what knowledge management is. I'm not stealing your thunder anymore, Karen.
Lovely, thanks Mike. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, smashing. Thank you very much.
Fabulous, thank you. So yeah, as Mike says there, as of the 1st of April, I changed role in the business, not linked to COVID-19 in any way, and I'm now the knowledge manager for Maytas and eTrack. So what's the role of knowledge manager? Just move that out of the way, there we go. So basically, the role of knowledge manager is to create and maintain a library of knowledge articles, documentation, and any other related resources required to enable a proactive support service. And this includes working with existing teams to understand issues, identify trends, and present information in a format suitable for customer consumption. So what does that really mean in practice? Well, the knowledge manager tasks, as I see them at the moment, are that I will continue to create the product release videos that I've been working on, and also the product overview videos, and I'm still going to work closely with the development team to ensure that I'm upskilled with all the new functionality as soon as it's available, so that I can get that content created. I'm also responsible for publishing the known issues, news items and knowledge articles on our tribal communities page. And also for managing the knowledge management support call queue, so any support calls that are asking for common questions where we may have video resource and things, I can point you to those, and where necessary create the video resource that requires. What else have I got to tell you about? Well, basically today, Tribal Lightning Communities has gone live. So it basically went live this morning. So we're pleased to inform you that Maytas and eTrack areas of Tribal's Lightning Communities website are now live, and you will have access. So you should have received an email this morning with a link. The link is a new communities, it's a new URL to access that community's information. So please note that the old site is no longer accessible. However, the new site still uses the same login information as the old site did, so you won't need to request any new logins and things like that, which is good news. So why have we got a new site? Well, it's got new and improved features, including a module-specific advice and guidance sections, the ability to search articles and questions, to view webinars, there's an ideas portal, known issues and discussion groups. So at this stage, let's take a look at it. So this is the new Tribal Communities. You notice visually it is different, with these large tiles at the top showing us any recent news, recent information, and you'll see here, welcome to the Maytas and eTrack users to your new community site. We can click on that and it does give us, here's your new community site, and tells you a little bit about it. Going back to the main menu again, and scrolling down to the bottom, we have these large buttons at the bottom, which enables us to access all these key areas, whether that be discussion groups, looking at the ideas, going and looking at resources, etc., managing support calls, known issues, and my feed. They also appear at the top of the screen. So I'm just going to show you these, what sort of information is within each of these options, and I'm sure you can take a look yourselves. So when you click on resources, it will show you tiles for the products that relate to yourself. So if you use EBS as well as Maytas and eTrack, in my case, then I can access the resources for all of those areas. If I click on to Maytas, then within here we can see down the left-hand side all the different items, for instance, product news, the wiki, and then on the right-hand side the detail is displayed according to that menu. So in this case we've got under product news, we can see that Maytas 519 is now available. We can click on that item and it tells us detail about what's within 519, all the things that you've had demonstrated so far today. Also what's interesting is we can link to the wiki. So if we need to get to that docs.maytas.tribal group that Mike mentioned earlier on, then that's really helpful too, to go and view the videos or view any of the content. And then down here we can see all the different modules. So if I pick on a particular module, in the case of report generator, here we can see any articles that have been created about report generator, and also any questions and answers that have been raised on that particular module. Moving across the top of the screen, we can take a look at known issues. Now in the case of known issues, you will see those these being published over the next few weeks. At the moment you'll get the message that they're coming soon. Taking a look at ideas, again I'll just pick Maytas here, but you could be picking eTrack. We can see any ideas that have been created recently, where you're able to go and vote on them with a thumbs up to increase the points, etc. We've got my feed, all the information, in this case the recent activity that I've been to, and discussion groups. Discussion groups are any groups that we set up in the case of focus groups that we're running, but we do also have two very useful groups called Maytas Questions Group and eTrack Questions Group, where you're able to go and see what questions other people have raised. In this case though, we can also see things like the Assess focus group that we ran and a QAR discussion group that we ran. And finally, we've got access to the support, and here this enables you to log a support call. So if I just take that back, that's our new tribal communities. As I say, you'll have an email in your inboxes today with the new link. we'll just come back to the presentation. And I just wanted to leave you with a thought that about knowledge management, and really that knowledge is the only thing which increases when shared. I thought that was quite nice, because normally when you share things, they don't increase, do they? So just a nice little point to finish on. I'll pass back to you, Mike.
Karen, thank you very much. So you've got one more slide though, which critically has your details on it, just in case anybody wants to get in touch and suggest something.
I did take that out actually, but it's quite okay. Yeah,
that's all right.
I just thought people have my details.
Yeah, a lot of people know Karen, so if you've got any suggestions about things that you want to get in there, either put them through to the support desk or send them through to Karen. Karen, thank you ever so much. Always great.
Lovely, thank you.
You just remind myself about how I make myself presenter again. There we go. And we'll just check what everybody's saying. Cool, excellent. So we've got one more. Well, we've got another poll. I think I'll say we've got one more. I think we've got a couple more to come. But the poll at this point, Karen is, as am I actually, because we've invested quite a lot of time in this, is interested to know who uses the videos that we make available. So we know that some people do, because Ben's got the good YouTube stats that suggest that some people use them quite a bit. And we're just interested, as you'll see, you use them all the time sometimes, you know about them but never use them. I didn't know there are any videos at all, which a few people are answering, which is absolutely fine. It just shows that we need to do some better marketing, if you like, of the fact that these things exist, which is exactly part of Karen's role regarding knowledge management. So if you don't currently use our videos, if you go to the online release docs, then they are embedded in there as well as being available via community. So we're trying in lots of different ways to get them out to you. And I've just lost my thought train. Sorry about that. I can't think what I was going to say then. But yeah, basically we've got lots of videos out there. Please do use them, interact with them, and more of those are going to be coming. Oh, the thing I was just going to reference is that I referenced earlier the fact that there is a handout with various links available in it. That handout is available to download in your GoToWebinar pane, so you should see a little handouts bit that was highlighted for me. And there's a little PDF in there which gives you links to things like online documentation. So without further ado, I'm going to dive into some regional updates, just specifically to reference Job Support Wales, because we've talked about that in the last 3 user groups that we ran. It was Working Wales originally, then I went to Job Support Wales. There is one update for this. I'm sure I know everybody knows about it. That the programme got cancelled earlier this year. And there was one positive to take out of it, though, is that Tribal finally received communications in line with the notifications sent to the tenderers. So I know Natalie's online, Natalie from Pembrokeshire. Thank you ever so much, because you were sending me the updates as you got them. But finally, right at the very end, we got the updates at the same time, which was a real positive. But unfortunately, that update was the fact that we weren't going to get any more because the programme had been cancelled. And then just also in Wales, we're very keen, we've been talking quite a bit about this, but we're very keen to get some Estin reporting down in Maytas standard. We've got equivalent, for those of you who contract in England and Wales, you'll know that we've got quite extensive reporting around Ofsted in England. And we've got a real desire to build equivalent report pack as we do for Ofsted. We don't get formal specifications of reports that Estin are looking for, so therefore we need to get some customer interaction to understand a little bit more about what is required from an Estin reporting point of view. Trevor's leading on something for us. So Trevor, who spoke earlier, is our customer success manager. So in his interactions with customers, he's trying to dig a little bit around what Estin reporting is required. So if you do want to be involved in that, please just do drop Trevor a direct line, trevor.eels@tribalgroup.com. I just had a slight panic that I spelled his name wrong there. No, I have not. It's not. It is not double L, which some people often do. There were just 2 very brief updates from a Welsh point of view. Just so you know, the LLWR specification for 2021 year hasn't got a lot of change in it. There's a few fields being retired. There's a few reference data updates. All that is not a problem at all for our July release, which I'll talk to later on. However, there are more changes in England as ever, so it's at this point that I'm going to bring Matt into the mix. Matt, if you want to unmute yourself. Hello, Matt, you haven't unmuted yourself. Oh, there you are.
Yes, I have now unmuted myself. Can everybody hear me okay?
I certainly can, Matt. That's wonderful to hear you. I've handed you the presentator view, which is the last time we're going to do it. So other than me getting it back later on, this has gone as seamlessly as I'd hoped. So I'll hand over to you now, Matt. Matt's just going to give everybody a quick 5-10 minute update on the changes around the ESFA, ILR and funding specifications for 2021. Over to you, Matt.
Thanks, Mike. Yes, this is going to be a kind of a quick 10-minute sort of presentation on the ESFA funding presentation. Hello, my name is Matthew Bludson. I'm the Reporting and Funding Advisor for Tribal. Many of you will know me from previous user groups, which is great to that I'm able to participate again. I'm just going to be, apart from one slide, I'm not going to be talking about any kind of COVID-19 related provider support. There has been a couple of updates on that, so I will touch on them briefly, but there are on the handouts for this session, there are a number of COVID-19 related websites relating to the job retention scheme, business support, even things like what data returns have been no longer required during lockdown, which have become mandatory and which have become optional for different organisation types. Some of it won't be relevant to everybody on this call, but it's a useful resource. But the main thing I want to talk about today is the ILR specification for 2021. The funding rules themselves have not been published, but the new ILR specification has been published, but there's also a new format for how the ILR specification is going to be presented. And I actually think in many ways it's an improvement, but I just wanted to kind of show you the beta that's kind of on at the moment. I've got a few screenshots relating to that. It wouldn't be a rule, an ILR specification or a rule change without some change to the off-the-job fields, and you're not disappointed if you're waiting for that. There is actually a new actual off-the-job training field that's been added for 2021. And so we're just going to briefly talk about that. Plus there's a change to the clarification on the planned off-the-job training field. And one thing I'm particularly interested in is the kind of, for the AEB customers out there, there's a change to the benefit status indicator, particularly related to the employment support allowance, and it's around the work-related activity group, which was connected to the ESFA's definition of unemployed being an active benefit. And there seems to be a change in the way that they've done that. So I want to talk about that kind of briefly as well. And there's a couple of new program fields for T-levels that are starting for those that are a part of the pilot. And as I said previously, the link to all of this will be in the handout for this session. So instead of a PDF version of the ILR specification, the kind of ESFA have now said they're not going to do a PDF version for internal governance sort of reasons. And now they've released a beta, which is connected to the URL contains, it's the same submit learner data site that we actually currently submit the ILR to, but the beta has an ILR section. It's now split up into 3 sections. There's the ILR governance section, which will talk about, first of all, why they're making this change, but also gives you advice about how to access the information offline. You can also kind of download the ILR specification as an app, and there's kind of guidance to how to do that in kind of Chrome and various things like that. But it also, in the governance section, it does give you the kind of roadmap to what sort of enhancements and what things are going to build into this process going forward. In the technical section, there's the actual ILR specification itself, and as well as and it's going to be in collapsible sections, so you'll have a summary of changes section, a learner detail section, a learning delivery section, and so on. And you'll also be linked to the kind of validation rules, which is in that section as well, and all the support documents like the privacy notice, the annexes, the data collections timetable, etc. But it does remove the need to check a document and check for the color coding. If it's green, is it a change from last year's specification, or if it's yellow, is it going to change from the previous version of the PDF that's been released? So I think that's actually an improvement in terms of how this data is presented. And the guidance section is also linked to things like the provider support manual. Now, at the moment, the provider support manual hasn't been published for 2021, but you can see that when it is published, it will be this will be the link. Now, on the next slide, I've just got the full list of links that you can reference to, and this is what I think is particularly important. It puts a lot of information in the same place for users to use. So as well as the the actual scheme and the validation rules, there's links to the file merging side if you have to merge ILRs from, say, EBS and Maytas, for example, or from Maytas and another software supplier. The merge file documents are linked to that. There's also a link to other provider tools that they should be using, like the Provider Data Self-Assessment Toolkit or the PDSATs, and also even things that I wouldn't have necessarily thought of, like links to the source of the LARS table, so you can see what information is stored in which table in the LARS. And if you've got any report writers or doing any kind of work in that regard, finding the information that they may want is very useful. And there's also, you may recognize the tools and services from the Submit Learner Data website. That's included in the beta, and that has links to, as well as the guidance on the funding claims, for example. It's also got the maintenance schedule. So every time an ILR is submitted, they take the the hub down for a week or so, and then when it comes back, the period end reports are available, and the maintenance schedule will say when they're taking it down and when it should come back up. There's also links to the qualification achievement rates, and also explanations of what all the funding reports mean and how to use them, as well as the funding and monitoring reports, as well, the FRM reports, as well as the earnings adjustment statement. So I like the fact it's all together in one reference point, and it's also acts as an aid memoir to think, oh yes, I need to do DSATs for this return. I need to I hadn't thought about I always wanted to know what this report actually looks for, what the logic is. You can look it up from the same reference point. I think it's actually overall, I think it's actually a big improvement, and we may see this on the actual funding documents themselves. I, like many people, do like to take a paper copy of the document with a couple of highlighters and read through the document, making changes. I won't be able to do that, but in the back end, I think how they monitor changes will be more efficient, having it online and just amending the bits they need to do without having to check you've got the right version of the document you're looking at. So I'm now going to actually talk about some of the changes themselves, and as I spoke about earlier, there is a new actual off-the-job field that is in addition to the planned off-the-job field that has already been in the specification. Now, this field collects the total actual off-the-job training hours as defined in the funding rules that is delivered to the individual apprentice over the practical period of the apprenticeship before Gateway, and this should be entered at the end of the apprenticeship program. So presumably this will be linked in via a rule, so say once the completion status is changed or the outcome is changed, it will trigger a rule to say you must complete the off-the-job field, and therefore the onus is to make sure you've got the processes in place to be able to put that in, because that will be auditable once you've put that in. The onus is on the provider to make sure that information is accurate. And there's also the guidance has just been clarified in terms of the planned off-the-job field, in which it's for apprentices, this field collects the planned off-the-job training hours that will be delivered to the individual apprentice over the full apprenticeship, excluding the endpoint assessment period by a training provider, subcontractor training providers, and the employer. So that was just an emphasis on the rule, just to be clear, as there was some confusion over this when this rule first came in. So note, in terms of the wider change to the ILR specification, there's not major revolution, but there are a couple of new fields. I just wanted to raise those because those will be relevant to most of the attendees on this session. I must say that this guidance of the ILR is not exhaustive. I do advise everybody to check this for themselves, obviously. But there is a change to the benefit status that I thought was interesting for those that have an AEB contract, because there used to be a BS benefit status indicator of 2, which was for the employment support allowance work-related activity group. And this was a kind of a valid justification for full funding in the ILR. And the emphasis, because the ESA has two groups, it has the kind of the work-related activity group, which is a sort of a shorter term benefit to help those back into work who need the extra support. And then there was also the disability element of the employment support allowance for those who had judged that they their disability was meaning that they couldn't work and therefore had longer term support. The key difference in terms of the ILR specification and the fund, and by extension the funding rules, was that in order to claim full funding, you had to be actively seeking employment. And it was interesting that the funding rules for 1920 removed the reference to RAG in the funding rules document itself, but kept it in the provider support document, clarifying that it did mean the ESA RAG. But starting from 2021, there's going to be a new field called ESA all categories, which is going to be BSI Indicator 5. And they're also removing the option for providers to those benefit status indicator 3, which was for providers to, if a learner had another benefit other than JSA, Universal Credit or ESA, but the provider felt in their judgment the provider felt the learner needed an extra step to get into employment, they could mark the learner down as fully funded and click the BSI 3 indicator. That has also been removed. So what I'm interested to see is, has in the funding rules themselves for 2021, is the definition of employment and therefore the onus to make sure that the learner is on active benefits and actively seeking work, that appears to have been relaxed in these kind of rules. And I'm just looking forward to see if the rules all tally up when the funding rules for 2021 are published, and see if everything tallies up in that regard. So, and the other change that I just wanted to pick up is that there are now going to be two new program types to cover the T-levels for 16 to 19-year-olds, 30 and 31, relating to the transition program and to the T-level program itself. And so that will be listed as a program of study, and therefore the component aims will be aim type 3 and 1 respectively, depending on the aims. So that's in terms of the ILR changes. That's everything I wanted to say. There's a quick COVID-19 update, because on Friday the 17th, the Apprenticeship Minister Gillian Keegan wrote to all MPs within the letter, confirmed that providers wholly funded by the levy will not be eligible for targeted financial relief. And there's a link to the full letter and to the ALP's response in the handout with this session. The justification for this is that the primary contract is not between the ESFA and the employer, it's with the training provider and the employer directly, and that's the justification. So apprentices funded via the ESFA, i.e. non-levy contracts, will be covered for provider relief, but those wholly funded by the levy, which is also government funding, will not attract provider relief. And the ELP's response does indicate that they are exploring legally challenging that decision, and so this will be part of an ongoing process. But I just wanted to, since writing this presentation on this Friday just gone, after hours, the actual guidance for the provider relief was published on the Friday the 24th, and a link to that guidance is listed, and it does talk about the criteria that providers must meet. In some cases, they must unfurlough workers in order to claim provider relief, and so it might affect what they're claiming in the job retention scheme as well. And so I've thoroughly advised people to check that link to see the rules relating to that, and basically a list of all the support guidance is in the handout, as I said before. And with that, that's me done. So with that, back to Mike.
Matt, thank you very, very much. We've just had one question coming through. That's not specific for yourself, really, but Joe asked about will Maytas be updated with development of the job fields? Absolutely, yes, it will. That'll be in line. That'll be in our July update, which will be in line with the 2021 funding year. Just another point as well, Matt, I think you've added that link there in the bottom, so that won't be in the handout. Is that right?
Yeah, I added it in the link. It's not in the kind of link. So if we yeah, so it's there.
Yeah, so people, just the thing that Matt's just referred to, the post-16 provider relief guidance, and that link isn't in that link. But Matt, thank you ever so much. I will take the control back on my screen, and then it's just up to me now, guys, just to finish us off by talking through the Maytas roadmap. Yeah, there's one poll remaining as well, so keep your eye out for that. It's coming just in a moment. Just a few things from us. Dates for your diary. Okay, so release 520 is oh, there's a typo on this slide as well. Apologies for this. Release 520 is our next release, and we will release that week commencing the 27th of July, in line with, as we usually do. As Matt's just alluded to, actually, even though we've got the ILR funding, the ILR rules nailed down now, even though we do expect another version, but we're pretty set, and we don't yet have funding guidance. Hence why we always push it as late as we can, to make sure that we get as many changes in as possible. We also don't have validation rule specs just yet. We'll do another service pack. We always do a service pack in October, likely towards the end of October. That will include reconciliation for the ILR, funding, and other things that are not at 11 there. I've got a slide on that in a moment. And then release 521. Not 519, that is a copy and paste error on my part, will be due 22nd of March 2021. That's just me underlining the fact that we have a pretty set release pattern now for Maytas. We'll release in March and release again in July, the service pack in the autumn. So that's our intention. As I always reference, our ideas from a roadmap point of view just come from all our interactions with customers. So if you interact with us via focus groups, webinars, user groups, if you've answered polls on this user group, it might just influence our roadmap going forwards. All the community stuff that Karen and Ben spoke through, they absolutely feed into the development roadmap. Trevor and Helen both showed community ideas that we've developed based on submissions on our communities forums. And then obviously we have lots of direct conversations. Trevor has an increasing amount of these as our customer success manager. So he's out and about talking to customers about their experience with Maytas and eTrack, and they are now feeding into our development roadmap. On that thought, our final poll is actually an interesting one. Okay, so we have been having conversations with a company called Strata. Okay, so they are a company who do a lot of things around performance monitoring. This is an English-based thing, unfortunately, it's on the ILR. And they're quite big in colleges. It's a ProAchieve equivalent. Okay, I mean, people know of ProAchieve. So I was just interested because we've been having conversations with them about both college work and about training providers. And we're just curious as to how many people have actually heard of them, of our customer base. So they provide software, like I say, that does a lot of monitoring on performance and things based on your ILR. So lots of people are coming through now. Thank you very much. And interestingly, the majority of you saying you haven't heard of them. So this is interesting for me. No, we've got a couple now coming through saying you're actively working with them, or considering working with them, which is useful to know. Basically, we've been talking about whether or not an interface between Maytas and Strata is something that our customers would benefit from, and it looks like a few of you would, although the majority at this point would not. But again, we'll be asking in the question in the survey at the very end, interested in hearing from us about other things. If you are interested in talking to us a little bit more about what we could potentially do with Strava, please do let us know. That's the last poll, folks will be pleased to know, but I haven't quite finished with the content yet. So from ongoing themes point of view, just over our immediate roadmap, okay, I'm not going to talk too far in advance here, I'm just going to literally tell you what we're planning to cover in the next release. So we're always doing statutory updates. Everyone knows it's the thing that we spend this time of year mostly on. We just had a really good run-in for 519, and so we could do lots of development in Maytas and eTrack, none of which was statutory because there was no statutory work to do. However, now obviously we've got our heads down going at it for the ILR and the LLWR and the few changes that Trevor referenced from the Scotland point of view. We are increasing our integration options with Maytas, the standard import watcher, and the fact that you can now save CSV files off to a location, as Trevor talked about earlier, is part of that theme. We're going to continue working on our integration options. Web services are coming. I know a few people would be interested in hearing more about that, which I'll touch upon in a bit. We feel that we haven't finished yet doing more around learner collaboration. Okay, so we've got the learner timeline in this release. We've got the Engage app now out and about, which people will be able to start implementing. And however, we're not quite done there with our learner journey, if you like. And we're looking at lots of cool things in the software to guide the learner through. Guide the learner through the software and how they should use it and stuff like that, as opposed to just them logging into something like eTrack and then needing to understand what everything means and how everything works. More and more people put Maytas into the cloud. Obviously, we host about 110 customers now in the tribal cloud, which is really cool. As a result of that, we're doing more work on the technology side of things to make it easy to host Maytas in the cloud. And we're going to retire the awarding bodies interface as a separate tool later on this year and build that into Maytas just to make it easier to host that as an example. And then we're having a relaunch later on in the year of our business intelligence software. We're doing a lot of work to out-the-box BI from a business performance point of view, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. But if people do start to adopt that, I know people have already adopted some of our BI stuff, but if people start to adopt our business intelligence platform off the back of that, then we can then use that platform to start doing some analytics and some machine learning and do some fancy predictive analytics type stuff to basically allow you, start to inform you about making decisions for your learners based on the data that we've collected. And then we always have a theme of customer feedback. We'll be including lots more customer ideas and later on in the year, so we need people to be communicating and interacting with those. So from a release point of view, Maytas 520, week commencing the 27th of July. ILR data capture and validation is always our must-have for that release. Not funding. Funding will come in the service pack, we feel. The LWR data capture and validation will also come as well. Both, we've given advance notice of those changes, so that's good. We'll be doing some more information. We're doing some more work on our digital data capture stuff. One of the questions we got asked was, when will you be able to allow an employer to agree to multiple trainee agreements in one go? That is a piece of work. But we'll actually maybe get out to a couple of customers before July, but we'll be giving it to everybody come July. Our standard import method, this is something just for people to be aware of, and we're actually rewriting the engine in the background. It should have no material effect to how you actually interface with standard import. It might mean that in the future we can push things like XML files to standard import as opposed to just CSV, which is quite interesting. Community ideas I've touched upon. Off the out the box business intelligence dashboard, focusing on business performance is something that we're working on. And then also for the customers that are on, which I think we've got a few who are EDS customers, they're not Maytas customers, but they do use eTrack. We're actually doing some work on the interface between eTrack and EDS to tighten that up a little bit. I've got some more detail on that in a moment. We'll be following it up with a service pack, as I said, so we'll be doing the funding and reconciliation for the ILR in the service pack in the autumn. The awarding bodies interface as a separate tool will be retired in favour of it actually just being as a module in Maytas, which makes it a lot easier to host and manage as well from you as a customer point of view. You don't need to go to a separate tool to interface with your awarding bodies or awarding organisations, as they're now known. It will be October when we release web services to all. I know I've got a few people who are actively talking to about web services to allow technical developers to push and pull data in and out of Maytas. Those who we're talking to will be doing something before October, but our intention is that we'll release to everybody non-beta later on in the year. And we've got lots of feedback in for eTrack Assess, where I put in October, but actually the nature of Assess being an app in the App Store is that as we make changes, which we're envisaging being able to do hopefully before July, once the statutory work's tidied up, then we'll start to be able to drip feed out changes to eTrack Assess as we go. And then finally, we'll obviously include more community ideas as much as we can. A few of those things in focus, and I'm almost done here for those, although we've kept attendees pretty good during this session, which is really good. So a few things in focus. The out-the-box business intelligence, what does this mean? Well, we're putting together business performance dashboards with the idea of that, any training provider will be able to look at that across different funding streams and be able to say, how am I performing as a business? It's all about us getting key KPIs in front of end users so that they can understand the overall performance of the Maytas system. A few key things from that, which is slightly different to our approach with business intelligence in the past, is the fact that actually we envisage people be able to use these out the box, as it says, and therefore not need training and consultancy about how you edit and change dashboards. The idea is that these dashboards are static and similar to our standard reports library. And it's the team that work on the standard reports library that are building these things for us, so that's quite good. If you are an EBS customer who uses eTrack linked up to EBS, then we'll be making sure that assessor links and employer links are now pulled from EBS. Now EBS has a place to put those, so you won't need to do that level of setup in eTrack. And then critically, we're going to start to make eTrack and OnTrack, which is the EBS web portal, talk better to each other. So basically, we'll be able to single sign on. So someone is going to, the intention is that everybody just logs into OnTrack, and if they're an eTrack user, then not dissimilar to how we demonstrated it in Engage, then they just pass through to eTrack almost without them knowing. And it means that you can just maintain one account for your staff members in your college who use both OnTrack and eTrack. A few other things, ABI into Maytas, as I've already touched upon, and as a result of moving the ABI into Maytas, we'll actually be formalising all supported awarding organisations. Okay, what does that mean? It means that actually we've got links to other awarding organisations that have been built via report generator and standard imports over the years, and we're actually going to pull all those into one place. So for example, if you use the current awarding bodies interface tool, you have no options to interface with NCFE in there. But Maytas can interface with NCFE via the report generator and by standard import, so we're just going to formalise that. The web services stuff, we're dealing with importing and updating standard data sets into Maytas, so we're currently working on this now actually, we're dealing with the learner record first, learner record and user accounts first, and then obviously we're trying to come up with a mechanism to allow you to control the data that can be called from a web service, so the data that people can get out of Maytas. And then from an eTrack Assess point of view, if you've got if you've got any feedback on eTrack Assess, do let us know. We've got a little backlog, we've probably got 20, 30 items in that backlog, and sorting out things like inconsistencies between iOS and Android, and then also just adding additional things. So for example, we don't currently include the learner's mobile number with the learner record in eTrack Assess, but that would be quite nice if you just needed to be able to call the learner. So there's a few things there that are just examples of the things that we're doing. I've been purposely not looking at my other monitor as I've done that because people started to post questions. I didn't want it to put me off, so I'm just going to have a quick look on your other monitor here for questions. So someone's asked specifically, do we interface with Skills Forward as a awarding organisation? We don't, and it's not one of the ones that we've done ad hoc things with in the past. So we can absolutely look at that. To see whether there's any demand there. We've been asked, are we going to send out any info on how one file can be integrated with Maytas? We're not specifically, but at the end of the, although Trevor's actually responded and said he can send you something, Vicky, but everybody please just be aware that at the end of this webinar you're going to get a survey asking you some questions. One of the things is, what would you like more information on? Here we go. What we've got here a question from Carl: has there been any consideration for a bulk GDPR deletion tool? We do actually have the mechanism in our database to pass through many trainee IDs to GDPR deletion and delete them, and that is something we offer as a service. So if you want us to have a conversation with you about that, please do let us, you or your account managers, know. There is a have you got any other questions at the end of this as part of the survey? So you can pop that in there and someone will get back to you. Trevor, you're getting bigged up here by Vicky. So Vicky from Yorkshire Training Partnership is shouting you out and saying a big thanks to Trevor from everything that you've done for them, which is cool. which is good, really good to hear. One last thing just from me, I thought it'd be interesting as we're in this strange world that we're in, that everybody, you know, gets a view of people's offices. There is mine. That is me today. I am wearing a Wigan Warriors top, and that's, you know, as we've been hosting the user group, I think I had a better picture, including specifically my campervan print, which is sat in front of my desk. So that's where I've been sat today throughout this user group. Like I said, there is a poll coming up at the end of this. So not a poll, a questionnaire, so please do take time to answer that. We thank you very much for attending. We've had a record number of attendees. I think we've peaked at around 100 people on at one go, which is pretty cool. So we thank you very much for that. And we hope that everybody stays safe in this very strange time that we all find ourselves in. And we will keep in touch via all these different channels. And if we are all still sat at home come August, expect another digital webinar from us from our various locations across the UK. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for attending. Thank you for your interactions. Thank you for your feedback. And thank you for using Maytas and Interact. We will hopefully speak to you all soon.